What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It is another Wednesday night Mythic Conversations. And, when I look at this was kind of the cover that we had for tonight's show. So, of course, we're talking about Legacies of Mythos. And that little tagline under there where it says, with special guest Eric Treadaway, I may have to just add him as like co-host of the show, because apparently he did. This is what we do on Wednesday nights now. And Eric just joins me every Wednesday because there's so much stuff to talk about. So without further ado, for the third week in a row, Eric, as I said, is going to join me because, Eric, we have something really exciting to finally reveal tonight. We finally get to talk about Legacies of Mythos.
We do indeed. Yeah, I mean, it's almost a year since we actually did the tease on this, which is hard to believe, but sure enough,
though,
scary.
It's almost a year that everyone outside of the studio knew about this, but we go back even further because we started talking about this long before that. If we go back all the way to another episode of Mythic Conversations that you were on with me, when we were talking about Ashes of Agbendor, or I think it was even before that, where we were talking about how we weren't going to be doing All-Stars anymore. We talked about, how we had done the All-Stars voting over the years and reissues, and what purpose it had served early in the line. But now that so many of the parts have evolved, we really don't just want to reissue figures. We want to do updated versions. And we said all of that without saying Legacies of Mythos. Like, that was the first actual very soft introduction to the idea that would become Legacies. So we were talking about this line all the way back then. And then, to your point, revealed at Legion's Con, or at Gcon last year, we revealed the long requested, figure people had wanted a reissue. But to that point, we didn't just want to reissue it. We wanted to redo it. We did Otho too. So tonight we actually get to see a full reveal on the Otho 2 figure. And 10 years people have been requesting this. He was one of the figures early on that was under-ordered, but as soon as it got in hand, became very popular. Tell us a little bit about kind of that history of Otho from that first Kickstarter, and how his kind of trajectory went from a bit of like an underdog, under-ordered character to the popularity he has today.
I mean, you said it exactly correctly. He was one of the figures that were on the low side of the orders. And, he was not alone in that group. There were several. The numbers back then weren't close to what they are these days either, because we were just getting the line off the ground. So, there's like and Orn and Ignatius, or not Ignatius. No, it wasn't Ignatius. Yeah, like Ignatius, some of those types of characters. I was thinking Owain for a second, but Owain actually did all right. But some of those characters that for whatever reason they didn't show as well on in the photos, or like Ignatius and Orn, both, like, the paint job from the factory just had such a luster to it that when people got it in hand, they went crazy for it. And Otho was, he's just one of those characters that was a bit of a sleeper.
Yep.
But when people got him in hand, they really liked the character. And, he's a important character in the story. And, we've known that from the beginning. but that's something that's, to public facing is kind of nice. Owen.
Wonderful to see Sir Owen in the chat tonight.
You did, Owen. You did all right. You're still doing all right.
Yeah.
But so with that in mind, we also knew that we didn't want to just, at least at a point, we knew that we didn't just want to bring him back as a straight reissue. And, he's one that we kind of held in our back pocket a little bit because we knew we wanted to do something special with him. And, it kept getting pushed down a little bit, pushed a little bit out further. But, we knew the time was right. We had the parts that we needed to give him his due. And, I'm excited to finally be there. It's like, that's when we go to shows and people are asking for certain characters or certain types of things. And, we have to bite our tongue sometimes. And this is one of those characters where we absolutely had to do that.
So for those who were not, who didn't see the reveal or the teasers kind of we did at Gcon last year, we revealed the Reign of the Beasts wave, and then we came back and revealed a number of other things, including Legacies of Mythos. What we said at that time was this line is a way for us to do new figures of iconic characters in our story in their classic looks. And, we've said reissues a few times, and, All Stars was always something where they were straight reissues of the Corn Boy saying, you guys need to quit sending me YouTube notifications and disturbing my vacations. Lord Elode, please enjoy that time off. Well deserved. No, but as I was saying, Legacies, it wasn't a straight reissue because we got to that point, as you were just mentioning, where take the night parts, for instance. The minute that you sculpted the bodies for the Necronominus wave and what has largely become known as the Valiant Knight body, it really made a lot of those original Knight bodies a little outdated, right? It's crazy to think about us having classic or vintage figures in our line, but 11 years in now, there really are some figures that they're wonderful in their classic looks, but to do a new release of it, we really wanted to put our best foot forward and use these new parts. And that's what Legacies was. Because the other thing that we talked about was the story of Mythic Legions is moving forward. With the Rising Suns wave, we kind of ended our first major story arc, and we're still working on the books to get those out so people can read the story arcs. But the line itself is now moving into a second arc. So some characters won't make it. The characters that do make it will largely be changed, both personally and visually in some cases. So getting a chance to do the classic looks for these characters, the classic look for Otho, that was the idea behind the Legacies of Mythos. And then this was the shot. This was that environment shot that Trevor took that we brought up on screen at Legions Con. Let's be honest, this would have been the biggest reveal at Legions Con had we not rolled Beathir out 20 minutes later.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's because that's the two things that we, had most requested. It was Otho and it was a dragon. And so it was a big year last year for the studio. So although we didn't fully reveal Otho at both for that Gcon presentation. So let's just get right into this now. We've been kind of talking about the ideas behind Legacies of Mythos and what we have here. We're going to show you this figure. And I know a lot of people are going to have questions as we present. When's this going to be available? What's the price and all that? Trust us, all that information is in the presentation. We'll get to it. We won't leave any of you guessing. So this is a better shot. Again, we had only previously seen this shot. Now we get to see this piece here. So, first off, we just talked about the Valiant Knight body. So this uses that brand new body as its base.
But we've got some other new parts here. So that iconic look for Otho with, the dreadlocked here, pull back. This is not just that same Otho head. You resculpted all of this, and you gave this figure some brand new weapons. He's got some really nice new soft goods. Talk to us a little bit about what we're seeing here on this character.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is, the perfect recipient of the upgrades that we've made in the line. And the two things you just mentioned are exactly the starting points for this new version of Otho. Valiant Knight body, that's the base of this figure. It was such a step forward for range of movement, detail. It really brought that kind of core knight body to a new level. And, going back to that first Kickstarter, that really was the, kind of the heart of the line as it was, initially developed, was that knight body. So, that's our starting point. Then, as we've been working with CJSM, we've been able to upgrade our soft goods to, an amazing level that, we started off, we were cutting out flat pieces of fabric with whole back. Now we've got full wired soft goods with, this has the gold trim on it, multiple pieces perfectly fitted. And so that was another thing, like I knew with Otho that we wanted to, when we got to this character, to upgrade the tunic and really take advantage of what we're able to do with the figure. Yeah. So those are like our, that was our starting points. Those are the upgrades. And then what do we do next? So which is a brand new shield. But the thing with Otho is, Otho is a very no-nonsense character. Yep. And so rather than doing a sigil shield here like we've been doing, or something big and overproduced, this is a very practical shield. Mm-hmm. It still has his army of Leodicius emblem on it, but yep, it's in a more understated way and more speaks to Otho's character. Yeah. It's also a great multi-purpose shield moving forward. It's a type of, it's a look that we don't have. It'll fit a lot of types of characters. So, thinking about this character, but also, what we're adding to the, the armory, to our parts library. So I'm excited about having this at our disposal now.
And we should point out, a number of people in the chat are commenting on the shield. This is actually the first time we've shown the shield, because the original shot that Trevor took, he had the axe and he had the sword in his hand, but he didn't have the shield in that photo. So this is definitely the first time that we're seeing that shield. He does come with a couple other new weapons, but this is one we've kind of seen already, not only in that shot from Trevor, but this new sword in, scabbard that in this shot he has on his back. That's something that was introduced or sculpted for the first time with Otho. We've seen it used again with both Sir Benegar in the Beathir set, and also with Commander Igraine in the Horror of Einsamel wave. But this one's a little bit different than both of those because of that pommel. So brand new sword as well that you can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's we really liked the way that the new sword came out with the Necronominus wave for the Knights, which was essentially an updated version of our standard sword from wave 1. So I wanted to do a broadsword version of that, something that accomplishes the same thing, a heavier sword, but a nice multi-purpose sword that can be used on any character. And now of course adding the scabbard to it, just because that's been something that we've enjoyed adding to the line and it's been popular with folks. And then of course this one here It's a little small in the pic, but he's got that at the end of the handle. He's got that again, that Leodicius motif going on that Igraine did not have that. Benegar did not have that. So that's particular to this character, which it's just, again, it's for Otho. It's understated, but it's a nice little detail to have there to, again, just give him a little bit more unique character and a little bit of his own identity.
Now, one of the things we did when we were designing this particular figure, of course, was look at the original. So the original came with kind of the long sword at the time, the regular sword, and it came with the axe. So you already talked about the shield. We wanted to increase his accessory loadout by giving him that shield. We gave him the 2 different swords. So in addition to the one you just spoke about, he does have that new sword that we introduced with the Necronominous wave. But you also sculpted a brand new axe for him as well. So he still had that 2 swords and an axe loadout. And in this part of the turn, it's nice the way Trevor shot the turns, because you got to see the shield, then the sword on the back, and now we get to see the axe that you can talk about.
Yeah. Again, it's a weapon that he had in the original release that was a shared weapon with probably a third of that initial wave of figures. And so, we just wanted to give him a unique, a unique axe that, something we haven't seen before, something, that looks like a no nonsense kind of weapon, but at the same time has some additional types of details that we just weren't pulling off early on. The armor, the head, everything's got added details. So of course the weapons and accessories have the same the same plus up that everything else does. And I just, every time we add something new to the armory like this, I think it's it's exciting for us at the studio. I think it's going to be exciting for the fans. Just it's like getting a new head or a new set of pauldrons. It's just something that especially for the customizers, that's a new addition to your creative arsenal.
So you just mentioned new head. We haven't talked a lot about that. So again, brand new sculpted head for this that you just did. But it's interesting going back to that first wave, like extra heads have become a staple of the Legion's line now. So it's interesting when you look at that first wave, how few figures in that first wave actually had secondary heads. Like there were certainly some figures that had secondary heads, but not all of them. It wasn't as prevalent back then as it is today. Otho, for instance, only came with this head. So that was another question we had to answer when we were putting together this figure. Is we knew we had to do his iconic look, because again, Legacies of Mythos is the iconic look for these characters in that first story arc, but we also wanted to give him some other looks as well. So here we're going to look at the whole loadout for Otho. And we get to see those weapons we just talked about, extra hands, but a few things we're seeing here. We do see that shield. It actually comes with the 2 different bosses. So that lion boss that you mentioned, I saw someone in the chat say, I would prefer to leave that as unique to Otho to identify his station. Well, great. That works because we're giving you a second boss with it anyway to make that shield a little more kind of standard. But look to the right of that photo, and we've got 2 new helmets with an Otho faceplate that goes in there. So let's talk about that a little bit. And we'll start with this helmet, which this helmet is kind of like, I think of this as like young Otho, because one thing we haven't seen or we didn't talk about is the dreadlocks on this figure. Actually, they plug in. So it does pop off. There is no port in the back of this for the dreads. So this would be Otho maybe before he had grown his hair out. a younger version of Otho from earlier in our story. But this mask, talk to us about that, because this has got a flip up visor with some of those like new faceplates that pop in there.
Yeah. So, like you said, I think this is a great stand-in for a young Otho, like, you know, in his early years before he rises in status through the army of Odysseus. And it also serves as, if you want to make soldiers for Otho with a different faceplate at some point, it's a great starting point for something like that. I also like it too because it's nondescript enough where you know, it's a helmet that we can use with an Aetheron character, or you know, a evil character, whatever. Like it could serve a lot of purposes. But yeah, I do like this, you know, the idea of where, you know, you could have Otho at a, you know, a few different stages of his life with this helmet.
So people are asking, and we knew we were going to get this question. Obviously, when you sculpt these, you've got to stay true to the shape of the face and the shape of the helmet. And it's why certain faceplates don't work with other certain helmets. It's why the chainmail for Sir Elijah and Sir Enoch does not work with the faceplates for like Sir Andrew and Sir Adalric. Does this faceplate and helmet work with any of our existing faceplates?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either.
I like, but yes, that it's a, there's a lot of faceplates floating around these days between the various lines. So I did have to stop and think about that for a second.
Yeah. So this doesn't work with any of our existing faceplates because the helmet is a different shape, but we've got some plans for the future. There are some things that will work with these faceplates in the future. Fair enough, right?
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I mean, we wouldn't, you know, create this and then leave people hanging like that.
And by the way, when we say they don't work with the faceplates, we're talking about simple, just pop it out, pop it in. Anybody that's got customizing skills can absolutely make these things work. If you're going to do any kind of trimming or modifying, you can literally make any of them fit anything. We're talking about out of the box compatibility.
Okay.
But you mentioned this being a somewhat, you know, less distinct helmet, which is the exact opposite of this one. Like this is full on battle ready Otho, where he's got this lion helmet, which this is an example where, and Trevor, my apologies, the photo's awesome, but you can't capture the coolness of this helmet in a photo without motion, because you designed it so as it lifts up, it's almost like there's teeth inside of that for that lion, where it really kind of looks like the lion's mouth, that cat's mouth and teeth are closing down as that visor comes down. It's absolutely so cool.
Yeah, this is where, you know, I wanted to really lean into an Otho specific helmet. You know, something that speaks to his character and his ferocity as a warrior. And you know, we had done the lion faceplate already in the past, and so I didn't want to repeat it here.
Yeah. I think we might have lost you there. Oh, there we go.
Back. But when it's closed, the teeth are, you know, together. It looks more like it's you know, like it's growling look. But yes, as that opens up, the mouth opens, the lower jaw is at his chin, and then it lifts up and then reveals his face.
And then we identified that the other helmet doesn't have a spot to plug the dreadlocks in. This one actually does. So you can put that in the back of his helmet here. another shot that shows the full loadout without the figurine, just more of the accessory shot. So you can see a little bit more of a close up of those two different helmets that you can pop that faceplate in, and it actually closes up. Again, you get to see the extra hands, both swords, the axe and the shield here. Of course, removable pauldrons, once again, for that full loadout. I mean, I love how this really feels like that Otho character. You know, I've had the privilege of being able to write Otho. He is a major character in our story. He's a character that probably I wrote about as much about Otho in that first storybook as any other character in our story. So he is very important. And I love how this feels like an upgrade of that original while still honoring the original. And I'm curious, I know you love creating new things. I know you love starting from scratch and sculpting brand new characters and creatures, but going back to a character like this that feels, I mean, it is familiar, someone you've worked on before. Talk to us a little bit about how you approach that kind of a project and you know what it means to you to get another shot at a character like Otho.
I love doing that. You know, you are right. I do love making up, you know, brand new characters, brand new sculptures, figures. But there is, especially after enough time has passed, it's always been fun to go back to something, you know, that a years old project and revisit it, and you know, kind of it's almost, you know, a bit of like a just like an exercise in like, you know, what would I do with this now compared to then.
No.
But you know, as I mentioned, in this case, it's also you know, it's also a lot about taking advantage of our capabilities now compared to where we were in the past. Yeah. But you know, I used to do this when I was a kid. Like, you know, I would go back to a drawing that I had done years earlier and redo it the last time I drew it or whatever. And I think it's just, you know, you look at artists, creators, and it's not an uncommon thing to see people want to go back and revisit. And, you know, here, that's really a lot of what this line is about, because, you know, even if we're moving forward with story and, you know, even just as long as we've been telling the story, we've been telling it for over 10 years, and these figures have been out for over 10 years. So it's a great way to be able to go back and still play with these characters that, you know, we introduced so long ago now, while still moving, you know, our characters' stories forward and our world's story forward.
For sure. So before we talk about the availability of this figure and how it's going to be offered, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the packaging. You know, I saw someone ask if this is going to be a deluxe figure. This is going to be a standard figure, but we wanted it to have that deluxe feel to it. Like, we wanted everything about this to feel premium, including the packaging and the painting. One thing that we haven't done on a lot of the packages is, you know, paint portraits. And it was so funny. Nate came to us and just like, right before we started the packages for Legacies, Nate said, I'd really like to start doing more portrait work. I really enjoy doing that. And that comment lined up with what we wanted for Legacies, where Nate was able to paint a really wonderful portrait of Otho that not only will be on the package, but this is what we teased yesterday when we announced that we were going to be doing this today. There's no way that we could talk about this presentation of Otho and not bring up this piece of artwork.
I've made no secret of the fact that I am beyond excited about this. You know, Nate's been just pumping out art for packaging for years now. And a lot of times, there are these involved projects where it's an entire, wraparound package and insert and all of this. And we hadn't really, like, back in the beginning, sometimes Nate would just sit down and do a painting, just pick a character and do something that he liked. And like, I am a huge fan of when he can just sit down and knock something out like that. And I mean, when I look at this, I can tell Nate is having a blast with it. It's something that he's excited about. So adding this as part of the line, it's, again, we're going, I feel like we're, going back to the beginning of this line and doing a character that was there from day one. And it's also like, this feels like going back to like the early days of, just kind of getting together and jamming on a project together. So the approach feels very right for this line.
Okay, so we do need to talk about the availability of this figure. But first, we couldn't have Otho be by himself, right? Like, this guy, Otho's too cool not to have, I don't want to say a friend, maybe the exact opposite of a friend. Like, we need, if we're going to release a new Otho, we need someone for Otho to match up against. So, Legacies of Mythos Wave 1 will not only be Otho. Eric, as much as I want this to be like a surprise and a secret, a number of people actually, I think, kind of guessed this one. The Amir himself was in the chat earlier, and he guessed Otho and Urzokk. Well, the Amir knows what he's talking about, because accompanying Otho is also going to be an Urzokk figure for Legacies of Mythos. So here we get to see the reveal of the art for both the Otho and the Urzokk figure. Again, Nate's work is so gorgeous here.
I mean, that's what, like, Otho's so good, and then you throw this Urzokk up. I mean, it's just, he's so intimidating here. Like, it's such a moody piece. Again, like, I absolutely love that we're getting these pieces of art. Like, this is, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I want this on multiple items, like, not just the packaging. They're that good.
So good. So good. I love the contrast too with the colors here, the cool and the warmth of these two characters. They literally match up together so incredibly well. Okay, let's dive into the Urzokk figure. So we shared the first version of Otho. The first picture of Otho that we showed was the environment shot from Trevor. So we're following up with that here. This is Trevor's shot for the environment shot for Urzokk. And what we're going to see as we dig into this character is it's a very interesting approach, because it actually has more newer parts than Otho did. Like, Otho actually had all of that night body that was perfect to use for Otho. But as you started digging into Urzokk, you realized that he did need a few additional parts. So this is the Urzokk figure. When I saw this, the first thing I obviously noticed were his weapons, but he's got some new armor. Obviously, that's a new head. Eric, there's so much to talk about here. Start wherever you would like to start.
God, I'm sure I'll forget something here.
I'll remind you.
I mean, let's start with the weapons. It's the easiest to start with. This is, as far as the orcs go, Urzokk's a big deal. As far as Legion of Erethyr goes, Urzokk's a big deal. As far as story goes, Urzokk's a big deal. So, like everybody else in the early waves, he had shared weapons. So I wanted, like Otho, to introduce brand new weapons with this character, and wanted to do something that felt orcish, something that wasn't going to be as easily shared. He's not going to have the same shield as Otho. And so, you've got it turned to the shield here. The shield was, that was a lot of fun, because it started off like I just wanted to make an orc looking shield, but then to take that and go back to that original, war paint pattern on the shield and make it this updated version of what was offered in the first line was, we just had fun, around the studio with that. The sword obviously is very different than really anything we've seen in the line. It more matches the orc armor scheme, very just brutal and deadly looking.
I remember in the book, it talks about his sword just being this like pitted, like a blade that has so much wear to it, but it's razor sharp. And Urzokk is so strong that when he wields it and he just cleaves something with it, he'll just cleave characters in half. So I remember when we were talking about it, mentioning that was kind of like how I had envisioned it. And then when I saw how you actually rendered his sword, it was amazingly what was in my head without me even knowing that's what was in my head. But I had a bunch of words that were describing it, but I didn't have a picture until I saw it here. And I was like, that's it. That's the sword.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this, I just think even if the blade wasn't sharp enough to cut, the weight of the sword coming down on somebody would kill them alone. So it's brutal on a number of levels.
Okay, so we've got the new shield, which is gigantic. It is a huge shield, very worthy of this orcish warrior. We've got that new sword. A number of people in the comments are asking about the belt, and then the belts around his chest. Those are things that are kind of front and center. And there's the new armor, there's the new pauldrons, and then hiding underneath those belts is actually a new torso as well. So a lot of new body parts that we're seeing on this figure in addition to those weapons.
Yes. I mean, thinking back to Rising Suns and the second Atlas figure, Atlas, the design going back to wave one was a mix of, his armor was a mix of knight parts and the orc parts. So when I was making that, I went ahead and made opposite sides for all the orc parts on him. So I was thinking about a figure like this all the way back then. And then on top of the items that you see a match for with him, the lower legs are newly developed. The torso, like you mentioned, is newly developed, and it's that's a torso I think we needed for a long time. It's a little bit bulkier. It's got those jagged edges. It's just again, it matches the orc look quite well. Got the new pauldrons, which is an update on the old 1.0 orc pieces. New collar, the belt buckle is that's new, and it really gives him a lot of specific character. The loincloth underneath it is new, which is again kind of an update on one of our original loincloth pieces, but here with more detail and the shape a little different. So it just, while updating that piece, it also brings some variety to the line. And then of course the head is a brand new take on that original head, which uh, we've got some expression on the heads now, which we've done some other orcs over the years, with beards or helmets or whatever, but just for this kind of base orc head, you're getting multiple expressions
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
So,
and we're going to look at the heads in a moment, but we'll look at the heads in a moment. But I know, like, you keep using the word like updates, and I love that because, like, I love those original figures. I look at Urzokk has always been my favorite orc figure since the very beginning, since the first wave. I've really loved Urzokk. I loved his colors, just everything about him. And to see this in, like, those shoulder pauldrons feel very familiar because they are an evolution from what came on those series 1, but they're sharper. They're more in line with what we're doing today. So for me, I'm here in the role of, working for Four Horsemen Studios, but I'm still a super fan. So I'm incredibly excited for this from that perspective. And this very much feels like something that's both new and familiar at the same time, which once again is the exact thing that we're trying to do with Legacies of Mythos. So absolutely love this.
Yeah.
So you did mention the heads. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, and actually, before you get to that, one thing that you saying that I didn't even mention here, because there's so much going on with the figure. One of the updates with this one that is the same as Otho is underneath all of these new adornments and spiky armor pieces and everything. It is a Valiant Knight body at its core, so it has all of the the bigger range of motion that comes along with that figure too. So even aside from the aesthetics of the figure, from a functional standpoint, it's also a step up as well.
So I went ahead for a second on a slide, and we got people saying axe and it's another head and open mouth sculpt. So people saw what was next. So let's talk about that. So the weapon we didn't see in those original shots, again, the original Urzokk came with a sword, a shield, and an axe. So once again, we wanted to be, we wanted to honor that original figure. So we did the 3 different weapons as well. Now, the original Urzokk did come with 2 heads, but it came with the same sculpture, one of them with the face paint and one of them without. And I remember at the time, it was kind of, because it was early in the line, so there wasn't a lot of like generic orcs, and it was like, well, Urzokk has the face paint, but we'll do one without for people that just want a plain orc to kind of fill that trope. Clearly the line has done many orcs over the years, over the decade plus that it's been out. So this really does get to be Urzokk. But to your point, we get 3 different heads. We'd seen the gritted teeth one already in those first shots and in the environment. We've got that open mouth kind of war cry. And then we've got what I call the stoic head that's on him right now.
Yeah, that one is, I guess, like the true update to the original figure. But yeah, I mean, this was, with Otho, the approach was helmet versus no helmet, and then, a couple different helmets. This one, it was more about, I wanted to see, Urzokk already looks angry. Yeah. I wanted to see him look angrier and then angriest. And because to me, the head that is the most appropriate to Urzokk is the original style closed mouth. I just see him as being generally, kind of more quiet and sullen and just like, more quietly imposing. But certainly if he's going into battle, like those other faces become appropriate very quickly. Yeah. And you mentioned,
I think we might have lost you there.
Back?
Oh, okay. I can hear you again.
Okay. But yeah, here we just wanted to we were fully committed. This is Urzokk. It's Urzokk and his war paint. All the way with this one.
So you mentioned that stoic looking head is kind of, your vision of the main head. This isn't the first time we've seen that head. Like, we have seen that head before. We saw it last week. So there was a big debate in the community this week because we very intentionally did not call out on the show last week when we introduced the Legion's Armory experience for Legion's Con. We showed this photo of one of the builds. This is one of the pre-builds, but that head is available as one of the options in the experience as well. And, we made it a point, you, myself, and Joe, not to point out that this was a new head, but this is indeed a brand new head. This is that same kind of stoic orc head that comes on the new Urzokk figure. So we gave people a little tease of this figure last week just for fun. And then as the debate was going on in the cabal and in the community this week, I made it a point not to comment on any of those posts.
Yeah,
that alone should have told people.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I looking at this too. It's just cool to see. This head almost looks like a completely different sculpture with
it does.
the different color without the war paint and all that. So it's a versatile head.
Yeah.
I always just thinking about what the collectors and what the customizers are going to do when they get these items in their hands. And I think this is one that, and this entire set of heads is one that people are going to be able to do some cool things with.
Well, I think that was, it's a credit to what the studio, and specifically what the painters are able to do. Sherry, Cameron, Joe, and Eric just do such an amazing job repainting parts in ways that make them look totally different. So there were a lot of people that were like, I don't know if it's a new head. I was listening to some of the chatter and they were like, Jeremy would have called out if that was a new head. Like, that would have been something that him and Eric would have pointed out. So the fact that we didn't point it out, and the painters are so good in making things look different with, different paint applications, let people kind of convince themselves that this was an old head. But no, this is absolutely a new head. We see it here as well. This is another shot, an action shot of Urzokk with that head on there. Again, he's got that shield and that sword. And then to see that full battle cry with, of course, both the sword and the axe, we get this one as well. So to your point, this is a Valiant Knight body that's at the core. So this is going to give us that additional range of motion that's been such a hit with the figures from the Valiant Knight forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the upgrade in the body has allowed for more expressiveness. Doing heads like this, the fact that we've made multiple hand gestures and types now. They're all tools that the photographers out there and the customizers and everything can just do so much more with these figures to make them their own and to make them emote and more, just more exciting on the shelf or in a photograph.
Someone's asking if the torso is the Valiant Knight. No, actually, it's a brand new torso. It's got the same kind of Valiant Knight, posability to it, but it is a brand new torso debuting here on this Legacies of Mythos Urzokk figure. We get to see, again, the accessory shot. So better look at, the shield, the sword, and the axe. Absolutely love those weapons. And again, we talked a lot about the design aesthetic that went into the sword. That's carried through, certainly not only on the shield, but you see that on the axe as well.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And
full loadout here.
We didn't,
once again. Go ahead.
We didn't talk much about the axe, but again, the axe is very similar to what we did with Otho. Just he had an axe in the original line, but we wanted to give him an axe that was more of an orc axe, an Urzokk axe. So these two complement each other well in the accessory department.
Well, and again, it's also, the nature of making toys, early on with that first Kickstarter wave, even though Legions from the beginning was built on a shared parts library. And early on, it had to be more shared than it is today because of the size of the line and the size of the company. And, we've been very clear that as the community has grown and the fans continue to support these in amazing ways, we're able to really take that success and reinvest in the line to do things like this. But not that these weapons won't get reused. They certainly will get reused, but exciting for a presentation like this with two brand new figures that we're able to give them really original kind of loadouts that work well for them as characters, as opposed to them, getting the exact same axe. The original Otho and Urzokk had the exact same axe.
Well, that's what I like about these 2.0s, and part of the way I think about these characters is if we were putting them into a comic or a cartoon or a movie or whatever it might be. Early on, if you took the color off of the figures, in the first wave, you may have had 7 figures that would look exactly the same, except with maybe a different head. And we were able to push all that to the limit. But now I think about it from the standpoint of, if, say, whatever media it is, Otho and Urzokk, you put the two of them in, they look like Otho and Urzokk, no matter how you slice it. Atlas 2, Gideon 2, Artemis 2, other characters that are in between, if they later get some of those pieces, that's fine. But it's, this is an opportunity for us to build out our core characters in a way that, we've dreamed of doing for a long time now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we looked at the full loadout here. This is what we've got for this wave. So these are the two characters we're going to get. We're going to get Otho and Urzokk. Now, we do want to talk about the availability, how these are going to be offered. And this was another challenge that we had to figure out for this, because we really have two kinds of models that we use. We've got the in-stock model that we use for things like Figure Obscura. We've got the pre-order model that we use for, our main lines, Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions, and so forth. And it's so tough because there's benefits to both of them. Obviously, this company really, especially at those earliest stages where we needed to know how many to produce. We couldn't just guess at how many to make and hope we were right. We had to have that pre-order model going in so we knew what to produce. But over the last few years, we've really leaned into the in-stock stuff. And again, I mentioned Figure Obscura. That wonder of being able to get something, to place an order and get it in hand a very short time later, that immediate gratification is amazing. The downside to the in-stock model is we always see people when we do an in-stock sale that someone's like, oh my God, this is the worst weekend for me. I just got hit with a car repair. I just paid this, or there's so many different aspects to why the in-stock model is a challenge, including it's hard to make it available through our retail partners. So right out of the gate, we said, are we going to do this as in-stock or as pre-order? And the decision that we came to was, we're going to do both. We're going to do this as in-stock items and as pre-order items. So here's how this is going to be offered. On Monday, September 15th, which is literally next Monday, these are going to be available as in-stock items at Store Horseman. Now, these are going to be available in the in-stock sale as a set. They're individually boxed. They're not together in a 2-pack. They're individually boxed. But because we made an equal amount of both, we're going to sell them together so we can make sure that we sell them in equal numbers. they're going to be $110 for the set. So they're $55 a piece, which is the price of a standard figure. We mentioned these both come in as standards. They're going to be limited to 2 sets per person for the first 24 hours. If any are available after that 24-hour period, which of course would be Tuesday the 16th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, then we will lift the limits. So your first opportunity to get these as an in-stock item is going to be on Monday. Now, I know a lot of people have been asking lately, are these going to be available at Legions Con? These will not be available at Legions Con. Our plan is to sell all of this inventory online, and it is a limited inventory. We didn't make a crazy number. We made a good amount for this first sale drop. Once that first sale drop sells out, on Friday, September 19th, which is next Friday, these will be available as pre-order items. No different. There's nothing different about the first run versus the second. Both of them are the same exact figures. This is our way of hopefully serving both audiences. Like if someone has the funds to buy this right now, they get that immediate gratification. But if for whatever reason they need a little more time, we will do this as a pre-order. The other thing is in the pre-order, they'll be available individually. You don't have to buy them. So if you want to stock up on a lot of Urzokks, for instance, to build out a whole army of orcs, you can totally do that in the in-stock sale. You can order as many of those characters as you want. The pre-order will run from September 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern until October 5th at 11 p.m. Eastern time. And again, and that they will be $55 each. So I'm really excited for this, Eric, because this is something we've wanted to do for a while. You know, I mean, I just talked through the whole scenario, but we love the immediate gratification of in stock, but it comes with limitations. We love being able to do pre-orders and work with our retail partners. And I should mention that as well. These will go to retailers at a later date. They'll be a little more expensive, like is typical, but these will be available through retailers as well. If for whatever reason, someone really wants to buy it through one of their preferred retailers. We love our retailers. Happy to be able to support them as well with this. So this sale is very much a best of both worlds. And people are asking when these will ship. So the in-stock ones will start shipping pretty much immediately. And the other nice thing about this pre-order is these are done and ready to go as figures. So we don't have all this wait for tooling. Our goal with these is something similar to what we had with Graveyard Skeletons last year. Graveyard Skeletons, we did a pre-order in October. It actually ended on October 31st on Halloween, and they were shipping from our factory in January. So it was only a couple months. This might not be quite that fast because these are more complex figures to produce than those skeletons were. But our goal is that early next year, these will be on a boat from China, shipping to our warehouses so we can fulfill. So you get them now, the ones that are available in stock. The pre-order ones will come early next year to hopefully help people, with their kind of purchasing needs right now. A lot of people are very excited about the in-stock option.
I am too. I think you said best of both worlds. I mean, this is the best of all worlds. I think in this one, because like you said, you're getting the immediate gratification. There's the opportunity to come back and pre-order. Retailers are involved with it. And there was a lot of thought into how to offer this, this particular project up, because we do love the immediacy and excitement of Figura. We do love the ability for people to have an extended period of time to get their product. One of our biggest reservations with this one was, especially knowing that Otho was in this line, if we were to do a straight Figura style drop, mm-hmm. we would have had to guess the number of figures. Yep. If we would have under ordered and, done Otho dirty again, like we would have never lived it down. We couldn't do that. And it's, Otho is the example, but Urzokk is a 1 point or wave 1 figure that people have been asking for forever too, and so that's going to be the nature of legacies.
Yep.
It's going to be figures that are desired, that people haven't had a chance to get in a long time. So, and even that retailers haven't had in a long time. So yeah, I'm excited about this because we do get that initial burst of excitement. I like the fact, like you had mentioned, even with a pre-order, it's not an 8-figure, 9-figure wave that has to be developed. This is something that we've already developed. Once we get that number, the order goes into the factory and they hit the ground running with this. So even on the pre-order end of it, it's a great scenario.
Yeah, I mean, being able to shorten those windows is something we consistently try to work on. The fact that we were able to show Otho at Legions Con last year shows how long we've been working on these. There was someone in the chat that says, will these really be in stock on Monday? Yes, these will be in stock on Monday. These will start shipping, so we don't release production numbers. It's not a tiny number, but it's not as many as the entire eventual run is going to be. We did a conservative number up front for this first run, limiting them to 2 sets per person for the first 24 hours. I saw someone mention that, people are at work at certain times. There's quite literally no time we could choose that would work for everybody. Because when we do weekends, like for Figure Obscura, there's a lot of people that work on weekends or with families on weekends, or we realize there is no perfect time. So instead of trying to find the perfect time, what we try to do with, those like 24-hour limits is say, okay, hopefully the stock we have will last long enough that it'll be a long enough window that people can go in there and they can find the opportunity to get this, whether it's on their lunch break, whether it's after they get off work, whether it's before they get off work. 11 o'clock Eastern time is 8 o'clock on the West Coast. It's, almost midnight. It's 11 o'clock across the world in China. So again, that's kind of the thing that we try to do, is spread out that with the run size, the limits for that first 24 hours to make sure that as many people do have an opportunity. But in this particular case, if for whatever reason you miss that in-stock window, you will have that pre-order option as well. It's not like, well, if I missed it, like with Figure Obscura, that run is the run. There is no pre-order after it. So once the run sells out, it's gone. With these, there is that second opportunity, which I think is going to really work well for hopefully a lot of different people in their unique buying circumstances.
Yeah.
Love looking at this shot here that has the two of them kind of lined up, both with their alternate heads, of course, in this particular shot.
Yeah, that's cool. With that layered effect is nice there. They really worked out to be a nicely matched up pair.
Very well.
I don't even like it wasn't completely planned out to the point where it was like, Urzokk would be the absolute best match for Otho. But, as the two of them were developed, they just really started to complement each other well. Like, like I mentioned, even, in the original line, you had a shield, you had an axe, you had a sword with each. And this just goes to show, like, we had one shield back then. Here you got these two shields that are so different, but they're very much like the opposite sides of a coin, kind of a matchup here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting because Otho and Urzokk, they do go back to wave 1, and they're there's only a few figures left in that first wave that haven't either been redone or reissued. Like, there's a couple characters like Gideon. So Sir Gideon was reissued in All-Stars 1 which at this point almost doesn't count, right? All Stars 1 was also so long ago that those reissues they're almost as old as 1.0. But then we also did Gideon 2 in the Necronominus wave. But Otho and Urzokk were two of those figures that fans had clamored for a long, long time. They were ripe to do, updated versions of. And like you said, they're both important characters in our story. Even though I didn't read the bios tonight, but even the bios for these are updates where we didn't write something, totally from scratch, brand new. We kind of took the ideas of that original bio and expanded on them a little bit. Otho is the second in command for the army of Leodicius. In many ways, Urzokk is kind of the second in command for the Legion of Erethyr, certainly until Erethyr returns, when it's Gorgo that's working on bringing back Erethyr. We talk about Urzokk being one of the few that he truly trusts. So in a lot of ways, this very much is kind of that the generals, the second in commands of those two armies.
Yeah, I mean, they match up. They match up really well. And you mentioned those bios. That's even like from my standpoint, that's fun to look at as well, because it's like so many of the seeds of the story were planted at the very beginning of the line, but we've added so many characters and added so many bios, so the story has grown even before people read the book. There's just been so much of the world built out since those early days. And so in one way, these bios harken back to those original bios, but they account for that growth in the world that we've all seen at this point.
We had a couple people ask me to read them, so we've got a few minutes, so I might as well do so. So the Otho bio is known as the greatest warrior in the army of Leodicius. Otho is the second in command to Leandor's king, Attila Leosair. Childhood friends with Attila and his older brother Atlas, Otho dreamed of the day when the three of them would fight together to defend the realm. Those dreams were shattered when Atlas abandoned his place as the rightful heir to his kingdom and disappeared. Long positioned to be Atlas's closest advisor, Otho was expected to be seated to his right when he eventually took the throne as the new king of Leandor. Of course, Attila would be the Leosair brother to eventually sit upon that golden throne, but he ensured that Otho would still be given the honor of the Blue Seat. Named after the fabled Blue Shield of the First Great War, the duty of the Blue Seat was accepted by Otho on his new king's request. He donned the blue tunic of this station and served Attila as nobly and as faithfully as any could ask for. However, in his heart, Otho has always questioned where Atlas went, and secretly he believes that some calamity befell his best friend, forcing him from his home and his sworn duty. So that's what we've got for Otho version 2, and it's actually, I just added it actually to the website. For Urzokk version 2, which I'll add in a few minutes, but I'll read the bio first. The highest ranking general in the Legion of Erethyr, Urzokk used an advanced intellect and cunning disposition, along with a natural affinity for violence and brutality, to rise from the ranks of a lowly foot soldier to Gorgo Aetherblade's most trusted acolyte. Trained by the orc warlord Vorthog, Urzokk showed great promise from the start. After defeating all challengers who were set against him, he was afforded extra attention by his trainer. Vorthog took the raw power of his young student and honed him into a nearly unbeatable weapon. Over time, Urzokk and his mentor began to slowly grow apart. While the grizzled old orc grew more and more disillusioned with the Legion's leader, Gorgo Aetherblade, Urzokk was enthralled with the black-armored warmonger's commands. Proving himself invaluable to Gorgo's plans by leading the vicious unit of orcs known as the Urku to a resoundingly bloody victory in the battle known as the Scourging of Arathorn Fields, Urzokk found himself elevated well beyond his former trainer's station. now one of Gorgo's primary advisors and one of the few he truly trusted, Urzokk was granted the ability to use his skills and his wicked weapons to aid Gorgo in his ultimate plan, to return the fiery god of war, Irithyr, to the realm of Mythos. And Eric, I think those are also proof of why we had to box these figures, because I'm very verbose, apparently. I like to write really long bios. Those original bios on the original packages, they just can't contain all of the awesome lore that we want to convey these days.
I mean, it's true. You know, we're to the point where there's so much storytelling that we want to do with these figures that the little space that we have on the side of the package really isn't enough. I mean, we struggled with that for years and years. So like it's great. Now that we're revisiting these characters, and like I said, there's been 10 years since they've been first introduced. There's just cool little bits of information that we want to, we don't want to have to edit out just for space.
Yeah, the nice thing about the new packaging with that extra space is Nate and I don't have to argue about what is an acceptable font size. That makes me very, very happy. And I'm sure it makes Nate very happy as well.
I would think it makes the rest of us happy too. It's good for all.
Okay, so as of right now, I don't have a Legacies 1 like link as part of the waves. I'll add that later, but in the checklist, both Urzokk 2 and Otho 2, yes, they're both in there. So those people that want to grab these photos instead of screen capping what I'm doing here, they are actually available on the website right now. Urzokk, I'm just trying to find it.
Excellent.
Here it is. Okay, so they're both up. So they're all there. Very good. And the bios are online. So very cool. Once again, just to reiterate for anyone that's jumping in, this coming Monday, September 15th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, the Urzokk and the Otho Legacies of Mythos figures, this is basically wave 1, will be available as in-stock items at Store Horseman. These are in the studio. They will start shipping shortly after that sale, sometime next week. We're going to sell them as a set just for the in-stock sale because we made them in even numbers, so we want to ship them in even numbers. For the first 24 hours, they're going to be a limit of 2 sets per person. So you end up with 2 Urzokks and 2 Othos. If there are any left after that 24-hour span, we will lift the limits and you can buy as many as you want. Following that in-stock sale on Friday, September 19th, also starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, but stretching until, I think I said October there, September 19th, stretching to October 5th. We're going to do these as a pre-order where they will be available individually, no purchase limits, $55 each. These will not be, even though we do have some in stock, we are going to sell all of the in-stock ones as part of that first sale drop. These are not things we will be bringing to LegionsCon with us. You know, sad side, everyone wants them at LegionsCon. Trust us, we'll get you plenty of other cool stuff to buy at LegionsCon.
Yeah, no shortage.
No shortage of cool stuff. So with that, let's look and see if there are any questions. Did you see any questions by any chance that popped up while I was rambling that you wanted to answer?
I starred one there. You had a couple as well.
Yeah, I think I answered most of my starred ones. So did you star one?
Yeah,
yeah, the one from Simon. Okay.
No, look at that. I'm doing.
I know. Look at you running the show. I'm not even needed here anymore.
Yeah, I pulled this one up. I just thought this was an interesting a question. Yeah. I thought a good question. there was a point where I actually considered doing Urzokk as a brute scale, but when I really sat back and thought about what updating the orc army looks like and what type of character Urzokk is and where he stands in the big scheme of things, I like the idea of Urzokk being more of a for a character like Otho, where he's, he is. I like the idea that he's the leader. He's a little bit more, kind of the strategic guy, although he can hold his own. And then we've there are other orcs that we've introduced an orc at a brute scale before, and so it leaves open the opportunity to do to do some of these like larger scale, like more ferocious, kind of more strictly suited for battle type characters. So I like that question though, because it did cross my mind. I did consider it at one point, but I just didn't think it fit the character the way that the way that we're telling the story and just how he fits in the bigger world.
Yeah, for sure. I do see people asking to see the packaging. We're going to hold off on the packaging. We're going to let people enjoy that when they get it in hand. Do you have plans for any future Legacies figures? Should we just say yes?
Yeah. Yes, we do. I mean, this is certainly, the beginning of an ongoing line. As you can see here, this does not follow the pattern of the core Mythic Legions line. It's a small wave. We've got this hybrid in stock pre-order model. So it is something that you're gonna see more of. Like I would love to see this line go for 10 years because 10 years from now, a figure that we're releasing this year is going to be eligible for a Legacies treatment. So it's just another track that we can travel on with Mythic. And again, I like that. I like that we don't have to abandon our legacy characters, even if they're not in the story moving forward, or they're somehow changed or have evolved in the upcoming story. There's it's like a little bit of a comfort food quality with this line. That's always, you always go back to these these versions that you first came to know in the line.
Yeah. So I do have a couple questions here that came in I think are good questions. Articulated Times, who is one of our approved retailers, said, will retailers get a chance to offer these? We did mention that's one of the benefits of doing both the in-stock model and pre-order. When we do in-stock, we can't offer it through retailers because we have to make them up front. This model of both in-stock and pre-order will allow us to offer it through retailers. So yes, these will be available from retailers at a slightly later date. Someone asked, how often will these legacy figures be dropping? Are you going to be sprinkled throughout the year like Figura? The answer to that is yes. And one of the nice things about an offering like this, because it's smaller, we can get a little more creative about where we actually are able to put it. It provides a challenge like Figura does, in the sense that if we want to do an in-stock component to it, we've got to actually get it in hand. So that makes it a little more challenging. But that's the idea, is that this will be, stuff that we sprinkle throughout the year. Someone was asking, is it once a year? I mean, there could certainly be a year where there's only one. There could be a year where there's a number of them. So it really, really depends. This is a little more freeform and flexible based on the way that other things shake out in that year.
Yeah, I mean, we've, as the the companies evolved and the the fan base has evolved, and adding lines like Figura, I think we've all at the studio really enjoyed this opportunity to mix the line sizes up, mix the release patterns up, all of that. Because at one point, we're doing several big, heavy waves per year. We were always on the wave model. We still do large waves, but to be able to drop these little, mini releases in and do, an in stock here, hybrid there, pre-order here. To me, it keeps it interesting. It keeps certain things getting in hand quickly. Other ones, it's a little bit more of a wait, but I like that pattern, that variety.
For sure. Me too. So another question here. Will the $10 flat rate apply to these? Yes and no. It will apply to the in-stock ones, not to the pre-order ones. And that's a very practical reason, is we have no idea what shipping is going to look like in 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 days in some cases. These things can change fast. So for right now, we know what our shipping rates are. We know what we're paying. We can offer that $10 flat rate shipping. These are in-stock items, so you can actually add other items from the store that are in stock with these and ship them under that $10 rate as well. But once we flip to the pre-order, like we do for all pre-orders, it will just be the regular shipping prices. Curtis asks, I may have missed it, but are these in their own special section on Soul Horsemen or under Mythic Legions? These are under Mythic Legions. They're in the Mythic Legions checklist. This Legacies wave will be listed as one of the waves. These are part of Mythic Legions. There's no kind of gray area for that. These are very much part of our story. Once again, they're the classic looks of these characters, but these are very much going to be considered under that Mythic Legions banner. Yeah, they've kind of got a nice little subline to them, but these tried and true are Mythic Legions.
Yeah.
A lot of requests, Eric, for Aetheron and Xylona version 2, which we have already said we're going to do. When we did Reign of the Beasts and we did Leodicius and Basilia, we said, look, we know that Aetheron and Xylona are very hard to find. We are going to do version 2s. Will they end up in Legacies or will they be something else? Well, that's for us to reveal in the future, but it's certainly there seems to be a vocal demand for them because I've seen a number of those comments in the chat tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see them as well. Like everything else that's happened in this line, like it will be the right time. It's going to make sense on a number of levels. To me, we knew for a long time what this first wave was going to be.
Eric, do we still have you? Oh, there we go. We can hear you again.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the right time, right place, but certainly very, very much on our radar.
Yeah, for sure. So I took my screen off sharing for a moment just because I'm putting together a quick slide here. One of the slides that I didn't do, I did a side-by-side of the two characters, but I neglected to actually show the full kind of builds, like the full loadout picture side by side. And the full loadouts are some of my favorite shots because they really, I think, do show everything that you get in a really good way. So this is what the full loadouts of both of them side by side. So this, On Monday, if you go and you buy a set of these, or if you max out and you get your 2 sets, and that first 24 hours, this is what you're going to get in those packages. Yeah. Good looking pair of figures there, Eric.
It's a solid loadout on these. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I'm looking at them, and there's more on the floor with Otho there, but all of Urzokk's new parts are attached to the figure. Yep. But yeah, I mean, you can see that the size of that Urzokk shield. When you see them kind of side by side, you see how massive that thing is. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about this stuff. Like, it's again, like we talked about earlier, going back to these characters that were created so long ago now, and giving them the updated treatment and
for sure
the individual design that I've always wanted to do. It's cool to be sharing this stuff now.
I love this comment from Kevin where he says, a nice thing about this hybrid buying model is we get to see if we want a bunch of others, and then we can pre-order what we want. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we always talk about is, a lot of times, because we do the pre-orders, by the time the figures are in hand and people start getting them, and they take these wonderful photos and they do their review videos, or Curtis does his blow up video with all the parts and stuff, we don't have them on our website anymore because our pre-order's done. It's been done for a while. So the nice thing here is that once this first round are going to get in people's hands, and you're going to see all of those photos and those reviews and everything, you're going to have that opportunity to say, oh, okay, I want others. And, it's not like the pre-order is done, but you're still going to get the benefit of that pre-order filling much, much faster than some of our big waves take us. So with that, Eric, we are at 8:57. Do you have any last minute comments for anything? Anybody, any last things you want to point out before we move on? I got a few little pieces of news to make people aware of before we call it an evening.
I think just that this is revealed, everybody is kind of sees what the deal is with this line, and kind of what the potential is. All right,
we heard you up to what the potential is.
Okay, so now everybody's excited about this at the studio. There's a lot of energy surrounding this, and so I think there's so much good to come with this line. It's always like at the verge of like saying too much, but yeah, I mean, I think this really does set the tone for where the line's going to go, and. Sure. As I said, I would love to see this, going for 10 years and beyond.
Me too.
So we can keep coming back to these characters, and by the time we're done with it, that Wave 1 Kickstarter is, completely reimagined. Absolutely. And beyond. Not to say that it's just that first Kickstarter, but
yes,
but yeah, that's just. A cool thing to think about, and just imagine what the future is going to look like with that.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that these figures are both from that first Kickstarter wave. There's a lot of other characters and figures in Advent of Decay, and certainly lots of other ways that are very eligible for the Legacies treatment. So this isn't, don't mistake it, this isn't us redoing the original 34 figures in new versions. This is major characters. There are some others from that first wave that may get the treatment. There are certainly some that will not. So this is going to keep you guessing. It's kind of like Figure Obscura in that sense, where you really never know which characters you're going to get in this. And that as well keeps it pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Figura. What I like about this too, and this is, some people were upset when we stopped All Stars. This is the new All Stars in a way. So, I would imagine at some point, we see people campaigning. It's not a straight up vote on this, just partially just due to logistics, but I've seen some names come up that are just interesting to see come up because they're not necessarily what I would expect to see requests for, early on in the process. But it's cool though. That's the sort of thing that'll inspire an offbeat pick from time to time. So I love it.
Yep. So with that, I did see a couple comments, people asking about the book. First 10 Years is at the printer now. The Rise of the Dark Four is with the artists. They're finishing up some of their art stuff, so we can hopefully get that solicited to you sometime next year. That's the book updates. But the last few news updates I have for you before we call it an evening. It is the last call for the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is available at Store Horseman until this Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern time. After that point, any stock that remains, it's going to go back to the shadows, which really means it's going to go in our vaults. We'll bring it out to some future shows, maybe some surprise sales, but we will be taking them off the website. So if you've been waiting for the Jersey Devil, which is on the water now, it should be arriving at the studio in the next few weeks, and we'll begin shipping. You have until this Sunday at 11 to do that. Speaking of this weekend, I will be traveling down to Stone Mountain, Georgia. I'm going to be hanging out with my friends from Ginger Kid Collectibles and Big Dub. Second year in a row, they did this cool kind of Mythic meetup style event at a place called Charlie's Collectibles Show. As you can see on this little promo here, the show runs from 10 to 6 on Saturday. A lot of great people are going to be there. I'm going to be there. Eric, I'm actually even doing like a little kind of session where Dub's going to basically talk to me in front of whoever is there and is so inclined to listen to me babble about the lore of Mythos and just kind of creating these stories and these characters and everything. So that should be a lot of fun. It's something I enjoy talking about and don't talk about a ton. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to see a lot of you out there this weekend. But with that, Eric, 3 weeks in a row, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I know there's a lot of people that are hoping that I'm about to say, let's make it 4, which means it's reveals. But I think you're going to take a little time off before I have to bring you back on the show, because we do know that you're pretty busy right about now, because we are coming up on our end of year push. We are in the thick of it right now, getting ready. As amazing as years we have, we still have some more things to show people. And this is going to be an epic end to an already epic year. I genuinely cannot wait to see everyone at Gcon this year and at Legions Con.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a highlight for us every year. And, this year is absolutely not going to disappoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, thank you so much. I will be back next week. We'll have a lot of great stuff to talk about. I mean, even just kind of going through the last 3 weeks of reveals. Like, we've really gone from Jersey Devil to Legion's Armory Experience to, talking today about Legacies of Mythos. Cosmic Legion's Ox Crew 1 is on the way. It's like there's so much happening. So next week, we'll take a step back from doing reveals, and we'll just kind of take it all in and talk about everything that's happening. I will be back. I will see you all then. Good night, everyone. Hope to see you this weekend.
Night, everybody.